Hello all, Rick here. Earlier I put out a video on the Earth space dock of Star Trek, and this is a follow-up of sorts on a smaller station in the solar system, the Jupiter Research Station, simply known as Jupiter Station. First off, here's an interesting fact about it. Did you know it predates the space dock by more than a century? The Jupiter Station was arguably one of mankind's first space stations of any significant size, established by Starfleet and by Earth's military assault command operations back in the 2100s. During this time, the station was less like the research outpost it would become, but instead a port for cargo transfers and ship repair, as well as a training facility for the MACO soldiers. At this time, the station had a more militant role, not only with its association with the United Earth's Defence Forces, but because it was the location for the installation of phase cannons on starships of the time, the precursor to the phaser array. Considering the outfitted phase cannon on the NX-01 was a prototype, it could be assumed that the weapon was developed at Jupiter Station 2, showing it did have some research and development responsibilities even in its early life. According to Apocrypha, this station predates even Starbase 1, as in 2155 Jupiter Station was still the furthest, most artificial colony within the Sol system. The station, however, was replete with technological flaws, as noted by MACOs who spent a great deal of time training there, as the artificial gravity generators would unexpectedly fail on occasion across random decks. By the 24th century, the station saw the emergence of many other projects, with Starfleet backing, including the most featured in the shows, the Holo Programming Center under the directorship of Dr. Louis Zimmerman. It was here that the Emergency Medical Hologram was developed, based on the data recovered from the accidental creation of the Moriarty program in 2365, as well as the subsequent EMH models. Zimmerman had his own facilities tailored to his project and labs on the station. The development, or at least testing of Starfleet weapons, was still commenced at Jupiter Station, as there are references to starships reporting to the station to be outfitted with new technologies and to test their tactical capability in simulated wargames. The station is technically a unique construction, but it was based on the extra-canonical Helios-type station that was developed by Starfleet. However, Jupiter Station was larger, and the Helios type generally consisted of only one spire and 3 rings. Unlike the ESD, the saucer sections of a Helios were not hollow, but closer to that of a starship, including the station's command near the top, where a bridge would be. The officers' quarters were just under these. The laboratories, storage and additional quarters were located between decks 4 to 10. The station's reactor was just below that, followed by the shuttle docks. Additional parts could be tailored to the station's needs. For example, Jupiter Station had additional communications arrays and several umbilical walkways connecting its 2 Helios constructs together. Within the station there were the aforementioned labs, of course, as well as holodecks for development purposes. However, there were also personal quarters for long-term research teams to live in, and at least one cafeteria. Unlike the commercial aspects that blossomed on stations like the ESD and Deep Space Nine, Jupiter Station is still very much remained a Starfleet facility and adhered to the expected protocol and regulation. As a result, it appeared to function very much like a Starfleet science vessel. Nevertheless, some small trade aspect did find a foothold there, as Apocrypha also lists several other places to dine based on various alien cuisine, which makes sense. One cafe tailored for humans is not going to cover every Federation species that may work there. Additionally, there are several smaller shops, but nothing compared to the larger trade hubs of Sol. There is also no mention of civilian freighters making port at Jupiter Station beyond the 22nd century, so if I had to guess, the 2 aspects of Starfleet RnD and cargo freight were separated. Back in the 22nd century, when there was only the one station, it made sense that it would serve a multi-purpose role, but as the Federation expanded and developed, newer facilities around Sol would have alleviated the burden on Jupiter Station, allowing it to specialise and find a single role. There is also the possibility that the original Jupiter Station of Enterprise's era and the Jupiter Station of the 24th century are completely separate builds, one having replaced the other. This is the case if you consider that the Helios-type station was developed around the 2300s. The Starfleet opted to deploy many of these as standard as it explored outwards to be used as refueling stations, and some were staffed by non-Starfleet personnel as station colonies. There is also the added design premise that the Helios type was in fact constructed from decommissioned Starship saucers, hence the stacked plates look to it. As a primary Starfleet development and training site, creating a myriad of tools that the institution would find useful, it became a high-value military target. While not mentioned much on screen, it was reportedly attacked by both the Dominion in one series of books and the Iconians in the online game, as well as the mirror universe. Basically, it is a tempting target, despite its proximity to one of the most guarded outposts in the Federation, Earth. Thanks for watching this breakdown on Jupiter Station as depicted in canon and other official Trek media. I've been Rick, and I'll see you again later. Goodbye.